night that should have been perfect. Nobody expected AJ Dybantsa's first night as the #1 pick to start with confusion, turn into celebration, and then explode into controversy before he even touched an NBA court. Inside Barclays Center, the lights were bright, the cameras were ready, and everyone thought they knew what was coming. The Washington Wizards were on the clock, and for weeks, the basketball world had been preparing for one name, AJ Dybantsa. But when Adam Silver stepped to the podium, the first word out of his mouth made the entire arena pause. Uneasy. For half a second, thousands of fans looked around like something had gone wrong. Was this a mistake? Did the Wizards shock the world? Did another mystery player just jump to #1? Then the last name came, Dybantsa, and suddenly, the building erupted. What looked like confusion became emotion. What sounded like a mistake became a tribute. AJ had chosen to have his full name called as a way to honor his father, the man who helped shape him, guide him, and push him toward this exact moment. In one breath, the draft went from awkward silence to one of the most meaningful scenes of the night. But that was only the beginning. Because while AJ was putting on the Wizards hat, hugging his family, and stepping into the biggest moment of his young life, another story was waiting right behind the curtain. Before the draft, AJ had carried himself with extreme confidence. He told people he did not need to work out for teams. He said they already knew what he could do. To some fans, that sounded like superstar energy. To others, it sounded dangerous. Then Shams Charania reported something that changed the entire conversation. AJ reportedly did have a hard workout with Washington. Just like that, the celebration had a shadow over it. The #1 pick was not only entering the NBA, he was entering his first credibility test. The Wizards were not just getting a teenage star. They were handing the future of a struggling franchise to a player whose first day had already become a national debate. So now, the question is simple. Is AJ Dybantsa ready to become Washington's savior, or did the pressure already find him before his career even began? Before we go deeper, comment where you are watching from. Hit subscribe if you follow NBA stories like this, and comment 1 if you believe AJ will become a superstar, or 2 if you think this drama is already a warning sign, the name that froze the room. The first shock of AJ Dybantsa's NBA career was not a crossover, a dunk, or a trade rumor. It was his own name. When Anisette echoed through Barclays Center, the silence was real. For 1 second, the entire draft felt like it had gone off script. Fans who had spent weeks hearing AJ Dybantsa suddenly heard a name that sounded unfamiliar, almost like the Wizards had pulled off one of the strangest surprises in draft history. But the truth was deeper than confusion. AJ wanted that name read because it belonged to his father too. It was not just a draft announcement. It was a family moment. A message. A reminder that before the fame, before the cameras, before Washington put its future in his hands, there was a father who believed in him long before the NBA did. That is why the moment hit so hard once people understood it. The same crowd that paused in confusion suddenly erupted with emotion. The cameras found his family. His father's face told the story without needing words. This was not only AJ becoming the #1 pick. This was a family seeing years of sacrifice become real on national television. But in the NBA, emotional moments do not stay pure for long. Because while the name tribute gave AJ one of the most memorable draft entrances in recent memory, it also made the spotlight even brighter. People were not just watching a prospect anymore. They were watching a symbol, a kid carrying his family, his city, his name, and now an entire franchise. And that made everything that came next even more dramatic. Because the same young man who honored his father with humility was also the same young man who walked into draft night with a level of confidence that made people nervous. He had said teams already knew what he could do. He had acted like proving himself was unnecessary. And once Shams Charania's report surfaced, that beautiful family moment was suddenly sitting next to a much more uncomfortable question. Was AJ confident because he was ready? Or was he already learning how dangerous words can become when the whole NBA is listening? The confidence that divided the NBA. Before AJ Dybantsa ever wore a Wizards hat, he was already carrying himself like the draft was over. That is what made people talk. Most prospects enter the pre-draft process trying to impress everyone. They fly from city to city. They meet front offices. They run through drills. They answer the same questions over and over again, hoping one team sees enough to believe in them. AJ moved differently. He acted like the league already knew. When he suggested he did not need to work out for teams because they knew what he could do, the quote spread fast. Some fans loved it. They saw a young star with real edge, the kind of fearless confidence great players need. Others saw something else. They saw a teenager flirting with arrogance before he had played a single NBA game. And that is where the story became dangerous, because confidence is powerful when it is backed up. But in the NBA, confidence also becomes evidence. Every quote gets saved. Every sentence becomes a receipt. Every bold statement turns into a future headline if things go wrong. AJ was not an unknown prospect trying to climb the board. He was a 6'9" scoring machine with elite tools, a polished mid-range game, and the kind of resume that made scouts believe he could change a franchise. He had been dominant at BYU. He had carried expectations since high school. He had been treated like a future star for years, so maybe he felt he had earned that confidence. But there is a difference between believing in yourself and giving the basketball world a reason to wait for your first mistake. That is exactly what happened. The moment AJ said he did not work out, he created a clean image. The untouchable #1 pick, the prospect so talented that teams did not need another look. Then came the report that complicated everything. And suddenly, the same confidence that made him look like a superstar started to look like the first crack in the story. When Shams changed the entire conversation, the celebration did not even have time to breathe before Shams Charania changed the temperature of the room. That is how fast the NBA moved. 1 minute, AJ Dybantsa was the emotional no-but-one pick with a powerful family story. The next minute, the biggest insider in basketball was reporting that AJ had in fact gone through a hard workout with the Washington Wizards. That detail mattered because AJ had already told the public something different. Now, to be fair, this was not some career-ending scandal. It was not a major off-court disaster. It was not something that should define a 9-year-old forever. But in the NBA world, perception is everything, especially on day one. And this was day one. Before AJ had his first official practice, before his first summer league game, before he even had the chance to earn trust inside an NBA locker room, the conversation had shifted from his talent to his credibility. That is brutal. Because Shams is not just another voice online. When he reports something, teams listen, players listen, fans listen, reporters in every NBA city listen. So when he suggested AJ had worked out hard for Washington, the entire "they already know what I can do" image started to wobble. Was AJ just trying to look untouchable? Was he protecting his draft night aura? Was this simply a misunderstanding about what counts as a workout? Those questions started moving faster than the celebration itself. And that is the part AJ could not control. He could control his words. He could control his work. He could control how he answered questions. But once the story got out, the narrative belonged to everyone else. For a young player entering a struggling franchise, that is a harsh welcome. Because Washington did not just draft his highlight. They drafted his maturity, his pressure, his answers, and every uncomfortable question that now came with him. Why this first test mattered. The reason AJ Dybantsa's workout controversy matters is not because of the workout itself. It matters because of timing. If this story had surfaced months earlier, people might have brushed it off as draft strategy. If it happened in year 3 of his career, it might have been forgotten in a day. But this happened right as he became the face of the Washington Wizards. That changes everything. The first impression of a franchise player is powerful. Fans remember it, media members remember it, teammates notice it, front offices quietly file it away. And for AJ, his first impression was not only elite talent, it was also young star already managing a contradiction. That is a complicated place to begin. Again, this does not make him a bad person. It makes him human. He is 19 years old, under national attention, trying to project confidence in a process designed to expose weakness. Plenty of young athletes say things they later wish they had explained better. But the NBA is not patient with image control. If you say you did not work out, and a trusted insider says you did, people are going to ask why. If you say teams already know what you can do, people are going to watch extra closely when your weaknesses show. If you talk like a superstar, people are going to judge you like one before you are ready. That is the trap AJ walked into. The scary part is that none of this changes the basketball. He is still explosive, he is still skilled, he is still one of the most talented young wings to enter the league, but it adds pressure to everything he does next. Every missed jumper becomes louder. Every defensive mistake gets clipped. Every confident quote gets compared to reality. That is the cost of becoming the #1 pick in a city desperate for hope. And Washington is not just asking AJ to play basketball, they are asking him to become the answer to years of disappointment. The broken franchise waiting for a savior. To understand why AJ Dybantsa's first day felt so heavy, you have to understand the team waiting for him. The Washington Wizards are not a finished contender adding one final piece. They are not a proud powerhouse reloading for another title run. They are a franchise that has spent years searching for direction, identity, and something their fans can actually believe in. That is what makes this so intense. Washington did not just need talent. They needed a symbol. They needed a reason for fans to care again. And then came AJ. A 1'9", you're old forward with superstar tools, a powerful name, a big personality, and the kind of offensive upside that can make a struggling franchise dream again. The moment he was selected, the entire mood around the Wizards changed. Suddenly, the future had a face. But that face now carries a massive burden. This is a franchise that has lived through rebuilds, failed promises, painful seasons, and long stretches where hope felt more like marketing than reality. The Wizards have been waiting for the next great cornerstone since the John Wall era. Wall once arrived as the savior too. He brought speed, excitement, and belief. For a while, it felt like Washington finally had its guy. Then injuries, pressure, and disappointment changed the story. That history matters because fans have seen this movie before. They know what it feels like to believe. They also know what it feels like when belief turns into another reset. So AJ is not walking into a normal rookie situation. He is walking into a city that wants to be excited but is afraid of being fooled again. Every highlight will feed hope. Every mistake will trigger old fears, and that is why his first day being messy matters so much. Because Washington does not need more chaos. Washington needs clarity. But with AJ Dybantsa, the Wizards may have gotten both. The talent that makes the risk worth it. For all the drama around AJ Dybantsa, there is one reason the Wizards were willing to live with the noise. The talent is real. You do not go no one because of a name. You do not become the face of a franchise because of confidence alone. You get there because when scouts watch the tape, they see something rare. AJ has the kind of frame NBA teams dream about. At 6'9", with long arms, fluid movement, and natural scoring instincts, he looks like the modern wing every contender is trying to find. He can attack the rim with force. He can rise into the mid-range. He can finish through contact. He can create shots when the play breaks down. That matters in today's NBA because playoff basketball is built around players who can create offense when structure disappears. When the defense switches everything, when the shot clock is dying, when the first option is taken away, teams need wings who can simply get a bucket. AJ has that gift. At BYU, he showed he could carry an offense. When defense is loaded up on him, he still found ways to score. When his team needed him to be aggressive, he delivered. His mid-range touch looked advanced. His rim pressure was elite. His size allowed him to shoot over smaller defenders, and his athleticism gave him angles most players cannot create. That is why Washington could not overthink it. Yes, there were concerns. Yes, the shooting from three needed work. Yes, the defense needed more consistency. But players with his physical tools and scoring package do not come around often. If he develops properly, he is not just a good starter. He is the kind of player who can bend a franchise timeline. That is why the Wizards took him. Not because he is perfect today, because if everything clicks, AJ Dybantsa could become the player Washington has been waiting for since its last real era of hope, and that possibility is powerful enough to make a franchise gamble. The weaknesses, nobody can ignore, but talent alone will not save AJ Dybantsa. That is the hard truth. The NBA is filled with gifted players who looked unstoppable before the league exposed the holes in their game. At this level, every weakness becomes a target. Every scouting report becomes a weapon. Every defender, coach, and veteran is looking for the one thing that can make a young star uncomfortable. For AJ, the questions are clear. Can he defend at a high level every night? Can he become a reliable three-point shooter? Can he impact winning when the ball is not in his hands? That is why Washington's message to him matters so much. Guard 94 feet. That phrase is not just about defense. It is about mentality. The Wizards are telling him they do not want a highlight scorer who saves energy. They want a franchise player who competes possession after possession. They want him picking up full court, using his size, using his length, setting a tone. That is a big ask for a rookie, especially one who has always been known first as a scorer. The offensive gifts are obvious. The defensive identity still has to be built. His body gives him the tools. His length gives him the potential. His athleticism gives him the ceiling. But defense in the NBA is not only about tools, it is about discipline, film study, communication, effort, and humility. That last word may be the most important, because if AJ wants to become great, he has to accept coaching in the areas where he is not great yet. The three-point shot is another test. If defenders can sag off him, they can crowd his drives and make the game harder. If he improves that shot, everything opens. If he does not, the league will dare him to prove it every night. And that is where rookie life becomes unforgiving. In college, AJ could overwhelm defenders with size and talent. In the NBA, every opponent has size. Every opponent has scouting. Every opponent has veterans who know how to take away a young player's first option. If he wants to drive left, they will shade him. If he wants to rise in the mid-range, they will send length at his release. If he wants easy points in transition, teams will make him play in the half court. That is why his weaknesses are not small details. They are the difference between being exciting and being reliable. Washington does not need AJ to be perfect immediately, but they need him to show progress. They need him to respond when teams test him. They need him to take the defensive challenge personally, not as criticism, but as the pathway to becoming elite, because the great ones do not just protect what they already do well. They attack what opponents think they cannot do. That is the real challenge in front of him. Not the sham story, not the draft night confusion, not the pressure of being compared to other no-one picks. The real challenge is whether AJ can turn his weak spots into weapons before the league turns them into labels. Because once a young player gets labeled as a poor defender, careless off the ball, or unreliable shooter, that label follows him. It gets repeated on broadcasts, it gets written into scouting reports, it becomes part of how officials, coaches, and fans see him. AJ has the talent to avoid that, but only if the work starts immediately. That is why the Wizards' 94 feet demand is so important. It gives him a simple identity to chase. Be active, be physical, be present. Do not disappear when the ball leaves your hands. Do not let offense decide your energy. If he can build that habit early, the entire story changes. That is why the hype is not enough. AJ has the gifts of a future star. Now he has to build the habits of the veterans who could save his rookie year. The best thing Washington did for AJ Dybantsa was not just drafting him. It was making sure he would not have to carry the entire franchise alone from day one. That matters more than people realize. A lot of number one picks enter the league on broken teams with no structure, no veteran leadership, and no real protection. They are asked to score, lead, answer every question, survive every losing streak, and somehow develop through all the chaos. That is how young players get overwhelmed. AJ may have pressure, but he also has help. Trae Young gives Washington a proven offensive engine. He can control tempo, create shots, draw defensive attention, and make life easier for a young scorer. Still learning NBA spacing, with Trae on the floor, AJ does not have to create everything from scratch. He can cut, run in transition, attack closeouts, and learn how to score inside a real NBA system. Anthony Davis gives him something just as important: defensive protection. A veteran big who understands championship basketball can cover mistakes, organize the back line, and teach a young wing what winning possessions look like. That is huge for AJ, especially if Washington really wants him to become a two-way force. Then there is the young core. Players like Alex Sarr and other developing pieces give the Wizards length, energy, and future flexibility. This is not a perfect roster, but it is not empty either. There is enough talent for AJ to grow without every loss being placed directly on his shoulders. That could be the difference between development and disaster. But veterans also bring accountability. Trae and Davis will know if AJ is locked in. They will know if the confidence is real. They will know if he is working when the cameras are gone. That is where his reputation can be repaired quickly. Not through statement, not through social media, through habits. If AJ works, listens, defends, and competes, the noise from day one will fade. But if he does not, Washington's hope could turn into pressure faster than anyone expects. And this is where the Wizards' situation becomes fascinating. Because AJ is not entering a team with zero direction. He is entering a team trying to build two timelines at once. On one side, they have veterans who want to win now. Players who are not interested in waiting 5 years for a rebuild to become real. On the other side, they have a teenage one pick who needs time, patience, and rep. That balance is delicate. If Washington rushes AJ, they could damage his confidence. If they protect him too much, they could slow his growth. If Trae dominates every possession, AJ might struggle to find rhythm. If AJ is given too much too soon, the offense could become unstable. The coaching staff has to find the middle ground. Let the veterans lead, but make sure the future is still being built. That is why Anthony Davis may be just as important emotionally as he is defensively. A young star needs someone who has seen the pressure before. Davis knows what it feels like to be called the future. He knows what it feels like when every loss turns into a question about leadership. He knows how heavy expectations can become when a franchise is waiting for rescue. That kind of experience cannot be taught in a film session. It has to be lived. And if AJ is smart, he will listen more than he talks during his first year. He will watch how veterans prepare. He will study how they handle bad games. He will notice how they speak to media after losses. He will learn that being a franchise player is not just about scoring 25 points. It is about emotional control, daily professionalism, and making the people around you believe the plan is still working. That is the hidden gift Washington can give him. A chance to grow inside pressure, but not be crushed by it. If the veterans embrace him, the young core follows him, and the organization stays patient, AJ's chaotic first day could eventually become just a funny opening chapter. But if the locker room loses structure, if expectations outrun reality, or if the early drama becomes a pattern, then the same spotlight that made him famous could become the thing that burns fastest. The real lesson behind AJ Dybantsa's chaotic first day. AJ Dybantsa's first day with the Washington Wizards was not perfect. It was confusing, emotional, dramatic, and messy. But maybe that is exactly why it mattered. Because the NBA does not give young stars a clean entrance anymore. The moment they arrive, they are judged, clipped, debated, praised, doubted, and turned into a story bigger than themselves. AJ learned that immediately. One name created confusion. One tribute created emotion. One report created controversy. One franchise created pressure. That is a lot for any one 9-year-old. Strategically, Washington has to be careful. The Wizards cannot treat AJ like a finished superstar just because he was drafted first. They need to build a structure around him, protect his development, challenge his weaknesses, and give him room to make mistakes without letting bad habits grow. AJ also has a responsibility. He has to understand that words matter now. Confidence is powerful, but clarity is stronger. If he wants to become the face of a franchise, he cannot only be talented, he has to be trusted. By coaches, by teammates, by fans, by the media that will follow every step of his career. The lesson is not that AJ should stop believing in himself. The lesson is that belief must be backed by consistency. Work in private. Speak carefully in public. Accept coaching. Own mistakes. Keep family close. Stay grounded when people praise you. And stay calm when people criticize you. That is how a young player survives the storm before becoming the storm. For Washington, this is about patience. For AJ, this is about growth. And for fans, this is a reminder that greatness rarely begins clean. Sometimes it begins with confusion. Sometimes it begins with pressure. Sometimes it begins with a teenager standing in the middle of a broken franchise, carrying a name that means something bigger than basketball, trying to prove he is ready. Maybe AJ Dybantsa will become the star Washington has been waiting for. Maybe the road will be harder than anyone expects. But one thing is already clear. His story will not be boring. If you believe AJ Dybantsa can become the next great face of the Wizards, hit subscribe, like this video, and share it with another NBA fan. Comment 1 if you think AJ will lead Washington back to the playoffs, or comment 2 if you think the pressure may be too much too soon.